Clara Jane Dawson did not weep when they told her the river had taken her husband. She stood on the porch of Dawson Ranch, dust settling on her black dress, and watched the men remove their hats. She listened to words like flood, no body, gone. When they left, she walked inside, pulled the gold ring from her finger, and buried it beneath the old oak tree. For the first time in 4 years of marriage, she breathed without asking permission. That was 3 years ago. Now Jacob Dawson stood at her gate, alive, begging her to listen. If you love stories of second chances and redemption, please like and subscribe to follow Clara's journey to the very end. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Montana Territory, summer 1878. Clara heard the horse before she saw the rider. She was in the barn, checking the ledger against the grain stores, when the sound cut through the afternoon heat. Hoofbeats. Slow. Deliberate. The kind of pace a man used when he wasn't sure of his welcome. She set down the ledger and wiped her hands on her apron. 3 years running this ranch alone had taught her to read trouble before it arrived. And something about those hoofbeats felt like trouble. Martha Holloway appeared in the barn door, her dark face tight with something Clara couldn't name. "Miss Clara." "I heard." "You ain't heard everything." Martha's voice dropped. "It's him." Clara's hand stopped moving. "Him who?" Martha didn't answer. She didn't need to. Clara walked past her, past the barn, past the water trough where the ranch hands had stopped their work to stare at the gate. Her boots raised small clouds of dust with each step. The summer sun pressed down on her shoulders like a physical weight. And there, at the entrance to Dawson Ranch, sat a man on a tired horse. He was thinner than she remembered. His dark blonde hair hung longer, unkempt in a way Jacob Dawson never would have allowed. A rough beard covered his jaw. His clothes were worn, patched in places, nothing like the fine shirts he used to wear. But his eyes, those blue eyes she had spent 4 years trying to forget. They were the same, except now they held something she had never seen in them before. Fear. Jacob Dawson swung down from his horse. His movements were stiff, uncertain. He took 3 steps toward her, then stopped. Clara didn't move. "Clara." His voice cracked on her name. "Clara Jane." She felt the ranch hands watching, felt Martha behind her, felt Silas McGraw, her foreman, step closer to her side. Everyone waiting to see what she would do. Clara lifted her chin. "You're supposed to be dead." "I know." "We had a funeral. I wore black for 6 months." "I know." "I buried your ring under the oak tree." Jacob flinched like she'd struck him. "I know. I saw it. I dug it up this morning." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the gold band, tarnished now, dirt still clinging to its edges. "I wanted to give it back to you. I wanted—" "What?" Clara's voice came out harder than she intended. "What did you want, Jacob?" He looked at her, truly looked. And then Jacob Dawson, the man who had never bent his knee to anyone, the man who had treated her like furniture for 4 years, did something that made every person in that yard catch their breath. He knelt in the dust. "Forgiveness," he said. "I came back to beg your forgiveness." The silence stretched out like rope pulled tight. Clara stared down at the man in the dirt. Her husband. The man who had ignored her for 4 years of marriage. The man who had spoken about her in the third person, even when she stood beside him. The man who had made her feel invisible in her own home. Now he knelt before her, like a beggar. "Get up," she said quietly. "Clara, I said get up." Her voice didn't waver. "You're making a spectacle." Jacob rose slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. He was waiting, she realized. Waiting for something. Anger, tears, relief, whatever reaction a wife should have when her dead husband returned. Clara gave him nothing. "Silas," she said without turning, "see to his horse. Martha, prepare the guest room in the east wing. Mr. Dawson will need a place to wash up before supper." Silas McGraw stepped forward, his weathered face unreadable. He was a man in his 40s, broad-shouldered, with hands shaped by decades of ranch work. He had been Jacob's foreman once. Now he was Clara's. "Ma'am," he said, taking the horse's reins. Jacob watched Silas lead his horse away. Something passed across his face. Recognition, perhaps, or shame. When he turned back to Clara, his voice was rough. "Guest room? You expected the master bedroom?" "I expected—" He stopped, swallowed. "I don't know what I expected." Clara finally allowed herself to really see him. The scars on his hands that hadn't been there before. The way he held himself differently, like a man used to hard labor. The lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and heavy burdens. "You've been gone 3 years," she said. "I'm not the woman you left behind." "I can see that." "Can you?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Can you see that this ranch was dying when you disappeared? Can you see that I saved it? That I worked alongside the hands, balanced the books, negotiated with the cattle buyers, kept the wolves from the door while everyone told me a woman couldn't do it?" Jacob's jaw tightened. "I can see it." "Then you can see why I won't simply hand it back to you." She turned and walked toward the house. "Clara," his voice stopped her. "I didn't come back to take anything from you." She looked over her shoulder. "Then why did you come back?" The question hung in the summer air. Jacob opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Because I finally understood what I threw away." Clara didn't respond. She walked into the house and didn't look back. Inside, Clara's hands began to tremble. She made it to the kitchen before her knees gave out. She caught herself on the wooden table, breathing hard, fighting the tightness in her chest. 3 years. 3 years of building herself from nothing. 3 years of learning to speak without permission, to make decisions without approval, to exist as something more than a shadow in her own home. And now he was back. Martha found her there 5 minutes later. "Miss Clara," the older woman's voice was gentle. "You all right?" "I don't know." Clara pressed her palms flat against the table. "I don't know what I am." Martha pulled out a chair and sat beside her. She didn't offer comfort. That wasn't her way. Instead, she waited, patient as always. "I thought I was done with him," Clara said finally. "I thought when they told me he was dead, I was free. And I hated myself for feeling that way, Martha." What kind of wife feels relief when her husband dies? The kind whose husband made her feel like nothing. Clara looked at her. "He never hit me." There's more ways to hurt a person than hitting. Martha's dark eyes were steady. "Mr. Jacob, he had a way of making you disappear. Like you wasn't even in the room. Like you was just another piece of furniture he inherited along with the ranch." Clara closed her eyes. "And now he's back. And he knelt in the dirt, and he said he wants forgiveness." "Do you believe him?" "I don't know." Clara opened her eyes. "He looked different, acted different. But words are easy, Martha. Words don't cost anything." "No, they don't," Martha rose. But actions do. And time does. If he's really changed, he'll prove it. And if he hasn't, I'll lose everything I built. Martha didn't deny it. They both knew how the law worked. A wife had no legal claim to property. Everything Clara had saved, built, protected, it belonged to Jacob. It had always belonged to Jacob. She had simply been allowed to manage it in his absence. "What are you going to do?" Martha asked. Clara stood, smoothing her apron with hands that had finally stopped shaking. "Watch him. Wait. And make him prove every word he says." Supper was a silent affair. Clara sat at one end of the long dining table. Jacob sat at the other. Between them stretched 12 feet of polished wood and 3 years of absence. Jacob had cleaned up. His beard was trimmed now, his hair combed back, his clothes, borrowed from the ranch hands, clean if ill-fitting. But he still didn't look like the man who had left. That man had sat at the head of this table like a king on a throne. He had spoken only to give orders. He had eaten without looking at her, as if her presence required no acknowledgement. This man kept glancing at her, kept opening his mouth like he wanted to speak, then thinking better of it. Kept his hands flat on the table, palms down, like he was trying to keep them from shaking. Clara ate slowly, deliberately. She would not be the one to break this silence. It was Jacob who finally spoke. "The ranch looks good." She took a sip of water. "It does. Better than when I left." "It was dying when you left." He flinched. "I know." "Do you?" Clara set down her glass. "Do you know that the north fence was rotting? That half the cattle had disease? That the hands hadn't been paid in 3 months?" "I knew some of it." "You knew all of it. You just didn't care." She held his gaze. "You were too busy being important. Too busy with your business trips and your meetings in town and your plans that never included me." Jacob didn't defend himself. He just sat there, taking it. "I was a fool," he said quietly. "I was arrogant and blind and cruel. Yes. I treated you like you didn't matter. Yes. And you did." His voice broke slightly. "You mattered more than anything, and I was too stupid to see it." Clara felt something shift in her chest, something she immediately pushed down. "Words," she said. "Pretty words. You were always good with words when you wanted something." "I'm not," he stopped, took a breath. "I'm not asking for anything. Not tonight. I just wanted you to know that I see now. I see what I did." "And what do you want me to do with that?" "Nothing." He looked down at his untouched plate. "I just needed you to hear it." The silence returned, but it was different now. Less hostile, more weighted. Clara pushed back her chair. "I have work to do. The books don't balance themselves." She was almost at the door when Jacob spoke again. "Clara." She stopped but didn't turn. "The guest room. I'll stay there as long as you want. I won't—" He paused. "I won't assume anything. I won't expect anything. I just want the chance to show you I've changed." "Show me how." "However you need. I'll work the ranch. I'll answer to Silas. I'll do whatever you ask." Now she did turn. "You'll answer to Silas?" "Yes." "The man you used to ignore? The man whose advice you dismissed for years?" Jacob met her eyes. "The man who kept this ranch running when I didn't care enough to do it myself. Yes, him." Clara studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. 5 in the morning. That's when the work starts. If you're not in the barn at 5, you're not serious." "I'll be there." She left without another word. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed, the bed she had slept in alone for 3 years, the bed Jacob had rarely shared even before his disappearance, and stared at the ceiling. "He's alive," the words kept repeating in her mind. "Jacob Dawson is alive." Her husband, the man she had married at 20, full of hope that had curdled into resignation within the first year. The man who had made her feel like a ghost in her own home. She remembered their wedding day, how handsome he had looked, how her heart had raced when he took her hand. She had been so young, so foolish, so certain that she could earn his love if she just tried hard enough. It had taken her 2 years to realize he would never love her, another year to stop hoping. And then the flood had come, and he was gone, and she had felt free. The shame of that feeling still burned. A good wife should have wept. A good wife should have worn black for years, should have kept his memory sacred, should have spent her nights longing for him. Instead, she had rebuilt. She had taken the dying ranch and nursed it back to health. She had earned the hand's respect through competence, not title. She had become someone, not Jacob Dawson's wife, but Clara Jane, the woman who ran the most successful spread in the territory. And now he was back. Clara rose and walked to the window. The moon hung heavy over the ranch, casting silver light across the buildings she had repaired, the fences she had rebuilt, the land she had saved. Mine, she thought. This is mine. But it wasn't. Not legally. Not ever. She had been borrowing it, managing it, but it belonged to Jacob. It had always belonged to Jacob. And tomorrow, she would have to decide how much of herself she was willing to lose. 5 in the morning, the barn door opened. Silas looked up from the saddle he was mending to see Jacob Dawson standing in the doorway. The man was dressed in worn work clothes, borrowed again probably, with his sleeves already rolled up. "Mr. Dawson." "Just Jacob." He stepped inside. "What needs doing?" Silas set down the saddle slowly. He had known Jacob for 15 years, had worked under him for 10 of those years, watching the ranch decline while Jacob focused on everything except what mattered. Had watched Clara save it all. "You sure about this?" "I'm sure. Because working a ranch ain't like giving orders. It's hot, it's hard, and nobody's going to treat you special just because of your name." Jacob's jaw tightened. "Good." Silas studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded toward the stable. "The horses need mucking out. Stalls haven't been cleaned in 2 days." "I'll start there." Jacob grabbed a pitchfork and got to work. Silas watched him for a few minutes. The man wasn't faking it. His movements were practiced, efficient. Wherever he had been these 3 years, he had learned to work with his hands. "Where were you?" Silas asked. Jacob didn't stop shoveling. "Wyoming, then Idaho. Worked cattle drives mostly, some mining camps." "All that time and you never sent word." The pitchfork paused. Jacob's back was still turned. "I wasn't ready to come back." "Why not?" Jacob turned slowly. His blue eyes held something Silas had never seen in them before. Shame, maybe. Or grief. "Because I knew what I was, and I couldn't face her until I'd become something different." Silas considered this. "You think 3 years is enough to change who a man is?" "I don't know." Jacob's voice was rough. "But I'm hoping it's enough to prove I'm trying." He went back to work. An hour later, Clara came to the barn. She stopped in the doorway, watching Jacob haul soiled hay into a wheelbarrow. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His hands gripped the pitchfork like he'd been doing this all his life. "He's been at it since 5, Silas said quietly, stepping beside her. "Has he complained?" "Not once." Clara watched her husband work. The man who used to wear fine suits and speak of cattle like abstract numbers was now knee-deep in manure, and he hadn't said a word of protest. "Keep him busy," she said finally. "Hard work. Nothing easy. And if he quits, then I'll know nothing's really changed." Jacob didn't quit. For 2 weeks he worked alongside the ranch hands from dawn until dusk. He mended fences in the summer heat. He helped brand the new calves. He rode out to check the far pastures and came back covered in dust and sweat. The hands watched him warily at first. This was the man who had ignored their concerns for years, who had let the ranch fall apart while he focused on his own importance. But slowly, grudgingly, they began to nod when he passed. Clara watched too. She watched him at supper, where he now sat in the middle of the table instead of the head, eating quietly, listening more than speaking. She watched him with the hands, where he took orders without argument and thanked them when they showed him a better way. She watched him in the evenings, when he sat on the porch alone, staring out at the land with an expression she couldn't read. But she kept her distance. She spoke to him only about ranch business. She answered his questions with facts, not feelings. She gave him nothing beyond what she had promised: a chance to prove himself. On the 15th night, everything changed. Clara couldn't sleep again. The heat was oppressive, the kind that pressed down on the chest and made breathing feel like work. She rose and went to the kitchen for water, and heard a sound from the study. She paused. The study had been Jacob's domain once, a room she had rarely entered during their marriage. Now she used it for the ranch books, but at this hour, no one should be there. She moved quietly down the hall. The door was slightly open. A single lamp burned inside. Clara looked through the gap. Jacob sat at the desk, his face buried in his hands. His shoulders shook. No sound came out. He was fighting it, holding it back. But his body trembled with the force of whatever he was feeling. Before him on the desk lay an old photograph. Clara recognized it even from the doorway. Their wedding portrait. She was smiling in it. So young. So hopeful. Jacob reached out and touched the image with one finger. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the photograph. "I'm so sorry for what I did to you." Clara stepped back from the door. Her heart was pounding. She had never seen Jacob cry. Not once in 4 years of marriage. He had been ice and stone and silence. He had been untouchable. But the man in that study was breaking apart, and he didn't even know anyone was watching. Clara returned to her room. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling and felt something she had thought was dead begin to stir. Not love. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But something. The next morning, a letter arrived. Clara was in the barn reviewing the cattle count with Silas when Thomas Brennan, the oldest ranch hand, brought it to her. His weathered face was grim. "Came by courier, ma'am. From Helena." Clara took the envelope. She recognized the seal immediately. Her blood ran cold. "What is it?" Silas asked. Clara opened the letter, read it once, read it again. "It's from William Dawson." Silas stiffened. "Jacob's brother?" "The same." Clara's voice was flat. "When Jacob was declared dead, the ranch passed to William as next of kin. He's been collecting profits from afar for 3 years, content to let me manage things as long as the money kept coming." "And now?" Clara handed him the letter. Silas read it aloud. "Dear Mrs. Dawson, I have received word of my brother's unexpected return. While this is welcome news, it naturally raises questions regarding the administration of Dawson Ranch and the legal transfer of ownership that occurred upon his presumed death. I intend to visit within the fortnight to discuss these matters in person. I trust everything will continue to be conducted with your usual competence until my arrival. Your servant, William Dawson. Silas looked up. He's coming to take it. He's coming to remind me that I have no rights here. Clara took the letter back. Legally, the ranch belongs to William now. Jacob's return doesn't automatically change that. There will be courts, lawyers, proceedings. And in the meantime, William controls everything. Clara stared at the letter. 3 years of work. 3 years of building something from nothing. And now it could all be taken away by a man who had never set foot on this land, who had never mended a fence or branded a calf or sat up all night with a sick horse.
Does Jacob know? Silas asked.
Not yet. You going to tell him? Clara folded the letter and put it in her pocket. I'm going to see what he does when I do. She found Jacob in the north pasture, helping repair a section of fence that had come down in a storm the week before. He was hammering posts alongside Thomas Brennan, both men working in easy rhythm. Jacob? He looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. When he saw her face, his expression changed. What's wrong? Clara held out the letter. Read this. Jacob set down his hammer and took it. His eyes moved across the words. Clara watched his jaw tighten, watched his hands grip the paper harder. William, he said flatly. Your brother. The one who inherited everything when you were declared dead. I know who he is. Jacob's voice was bitter. I know exactly who he is. Then you know what this means. Jacob looked up at her. He's coming to take the ranch. He's coming to remind everyone that he owns it, that you have no legal standing until the courts decide otherwise, that Clara stopped, her throat tight. That you have nothing, Jacob finished quietly.
Because a wife has no claim to property.
The words hung between them. I built this, Clara said, her voice low but fierce. I saved this ranch when it was dying. I earned the respect of every person who works here. And now your brother can walk in and take it all, just because the law says he can. Jacob was silent for a long moment. Then he folded the letter carefully and handed it back. Not if I have anything to say about it. What can you do? You have no title, no legal authority. I have something better. Jacob met her eyes. I have a debt to pay, to this land, to these people. He paused. To you. Clara felt her heart stutter. What are you saying? I'm saying that when William comes, he'll face more than a widow and a few ranch hands. He'll face me. And I will fight for you, Clara. Not for the ranch, not for the name. For you. The summer heat pressed down on them. Thomas Brennan had stopped working, watching the exchange with careful eyes. In the distance, a hawk circled lazily against the blue sky. Clara looked at the man before her. Covered in sweat and dust, his fine manners worn away by 3 years of hard living, his arrogance replaced by something that looked almost like humility. She still didn't trust him. Not completely. Not yet. But for the first time since he knelt in the dust at her gate, she allowed herself to consider that maybe, just maybe, he meant what he said. 2 weeks, she said finally. That's how long we have until William arrives. Then we have 2 weeks to prepare. For what? Jacob looked out over the land, the pastures Clara had revived, the fences she had rebuilt, the ranch she had saved. For whatever comes next. The days that followed moved like a slow fever. Clara threw herself into work, rising before dawn, staying in the barn until the stars came out. If she kept busy, she didn't have to think. If she didn't think, she didn't have to feel. And feeling was dangerous now, with Jacob watching her from across the yard, with William's letter burning a hole in her desk drawer. On the third morning after the letter arrived, Martha found her in the kitchen before sunrise. "You ain't sleepin'." Clara poured herself coffee. "I'm fine." "You're lyin'." Martha sat down across from her. "I've known you 7 years, Miss Clara. You forget I can read you like a book." "Then you know I don't want to talk about it." "I know you're scared," Martha's voice softened. "And I know you're too stubborn to admit it." Clara's hands tightened around the cup. "If William takes this ranch, he ain't taken nothing yet." "But he will. You know how the law works, Martha. I'm a woman. I have no rights. Everything I built, everything I saved—" Her voice cracked. She stopped, pressed her lips together, forced the weakness down. Martha reached across and covered Clara's hand with her own.
"That man out there," she said quietly. "The one who's been working himself half to death for 2 weeks. You think he's going to let his brother take what's yours?"
"It's not mine. It never was."
"It is yours." Martha's grip tightened. "In every way that matters, this ranch belongs to you. And if Jacob Dawson has any sense left in that head of his, he knows it too."
Clara pulled her hand away. "I can't depend on him. I won't."
"Why not?"
"Because I depended on him once." Clara's voice was barely a whisper.
"And he made me disappear."
Martha was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood.
"People can change, Miss Clara. Lord knows I've seen it. The question is whether you're brave enough to let them prove it."
She left Clara alone with her cold coffee and her racing thoughts. An hour later, Clara walked to the barn. Jacob was already there, of course. He was always there now, first to arrive and last to leave. Today he was helping Silas load hay bales onto a wagon, his movements practiced and efficient. He looked up when she entered. "Morning." "Morning." She stopped a few feet away. "I need to talk to you." Silas glanced between them, then grabbed another bale. "I'll finish this up. Take your time." When he was gone, Jacob wiped his hands on his trousers and waited. Clara had rehearsed this conversation a dozen times in her head. Now the words scattered like startled birds. "The hands are talking," she said finally. "About what?" "About you. About whether you're really changed or just putting on a show." Jacob's jaw tightened. "And what do you think?" "I don't know what I think." Clara crossed her arms. "You work hard. You take orders. You haven't complained once. But I keep waiting for the other boot to drop." "What other boot?" "The one where you remember who you are. Where you decide you're tired of playing at being humble. Where you go back to being the man who treated me like I didn't exist." Jacob flinched. The reaction was small, quickly controlled, but Clara saw it. "That man is dead," he said quietly. "Is he?" "Yes." Jacob stepped closer. "He drowned in that river 3 years ago. And the man who crawled out on the other side spent every day since trying to become someone worthy of coming back." "Pretty words." "I know you don't believe them. I know I haven't earned that yet." His blue eyes held hers. "But I will. However long it takes, I will prove to you that I'm not him anymore." Clara wanted to believe him. God help her, she wanted to. "William arrives in 11 days, she said instead. "I know." "He'll try to take everything." "I know that too." "What are you going to do about it?" Jacob was silent for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded paper. "I've been thinking about that." He handed it to her. "Read this." Clara unfolded the paper. It was covered in Jacob's handwriting. Lists, numbers, notes. "What is this?" "Everything I remember about William. His weaknesses, his debts, the deals he's made that wouldn't stand up to scrutiny." Jacob's voice hardened. My brother isn't the upstanding citizen he pretends to be. He's got creditors in 3 territories and enemies in 2 more. If we can find proof. Proof of what? That he's been mismanaging funds. That he's been collecting profits from this ranch and using them to cover his own losses. Jacob pointed to a section of notes. I know for a fact he owes money to a man named Sullivan in Helena. Gambling debts. The kind he'd do anything to hide. Clara read through the notes, her mind racing. How do you know all this? Because William used to brag about it. He thought he was clever, playing both sides, taking what he wanted and covering his tracks. Jacob's mouth twisted. He never thought anyone was paying attention. But I was. And now I'm going to use it. Clara looked up at him. This is blackmail. This is leverage. Jacob held her gaze. I won't let him take what you built, Clara. Not without a fight. Something shifted in Clara's chest. She pushed it down. We'll need more than notes and memories. We'll need documents, witnesses. Then we find them. Jacob took the paper back. I have 11 days. I'll start with Sullivan. That means riding to Helena. I know. Clara hesitated. You're leaving? Only for a few days. I'll be back before William arrives. Jacob paused. Unless you want me to stay. The question hung between them. Go, Clara said finally. Find what you can, but, Jacob. Yes? If you're not back in time, if you leave me to face him alone. I won't. His voice was fierce. I swear to you, Clara, I will be here. She nodded once and turned away. She was almost at the barn door when Jacob spoke again. Clara. She stopped. Thank you. For what? For giving me a chance. For not sending me away the day I arrived. Clara didn't turn around. Don't thank me yet. You haven't proven anything. I will. She walked out into the morning light, her heart pounding harder than she wanted to admit. Jacob left for Helena that afternoon. Clara stood on the porch and watched him ride out, his figure growing smaller against the summer sky. Beside her, Martha watched too. You think he'll come back? Martha asked. I don't know. You want him to? Clara didn't answer. She wasn't sure she knew anymore. The days without Jacob were strange. Clara had grown used to seeing him in the barn, at the dinner table, working alongside the hands. His absence left a gap she hadn't expected to notice. She threw herself into preparations for William's arrival. She organized every document, balanced every ledger, made sure the ranch was running perfectly. If William wanted to find fault, he would find nothing. But underneath the work, something else was growing, something she didn't want to name. On the 4th night, she couldn't sleep. She wandered the dark house, past the study where she'd seen Jacob weeping over their wedding portrait, past the guest room where he'd been staying, past the kitchen where Martha had first told her he'd returned. She ended up on the porch, staring at the moon. Miss Clara? She turned. Silas stood in the doorway, his weathered face concerned. Couldn't sleep, she said. Neither could I. He came to stand beside her. Thinking about William. Among other things. Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I've known Jacob Dawson 15 years, worked for him for 10 of those, and I never liked him much. Clara looked at him. I didn't know that. Wasn't my place to say. He was the boss. You do what the boss says, even when the boss is wrong. Silas leaned against the porch rail. But these last few weeks, watching him work, watching him take orders without complaint. That ain't the same man, Miss Clara. People can pretend. They can, but not like this. Not day after day, doing the hardest jobs without a word. Silas shook his head. That man out there, the one who rode to Helena to fight for you, He's different. I don't know what happened to him in those 3 years, but something changed him down to the bone. Clara stared at the distant mountains.
Even if he has changed, it doesn't erase what he did.
No, but it might mean something. Silas straightened. Get some sleep, Miss Clara. Whatever's coming, you'll need your strength. He went back inside, leaving her alone with the stars. On the 6th day, Thomas Brennan came to her with news.
"Ryder coming in fast, ma'am."
Clara's heart jumped.
"Jacob?" "Can't tell yet, but whoever it is, they're pushing hard."
She walked to the gate and waited. The rider grew larger, closer. And then she saw him. Jacob. He dismounted before the horse had fully stopped, his face drawn with exhaustion, but his eyes bright with something that looked like triumph. "I've found it."
"Found what?"
Jacob pulled a leather satchel from his saddlebag. "Proof. William's been stealing from the ranch for 2 years. I found the records, Clara. Everything he's been hiding." Clara's hands trembled as she took the satchel.
"How?"
"Sullivan. Turns out William owes him more than money. He owes him silence." Jacob's voice was grim. "William's been embezzling funds from 3 different properties, including this one. Sullivan kept records as insurance. I convinced him to share them."
"Convinced him how?"
"I told him the truth, that if William takes this ranch, Sullivan will never see a cent of what he's owed. But if William is exposed, if he's ruined, Sullivan can claim the debts publicly." Clara opened the satchel. Inside were ledgers, letters, contracts, a paper trail of fraud and deception.
"This is enough to destroy him," she breathed.
"Yes." Jacob's eyes met hers. "But it's your choice, Clara. What we do with this is up to you." Clara stared at the documents. William's crimes laid bare. Everything she needed to protect what she'd built. But using them would mean war. Real war. The kind that didn't end when the battle was over.
"When does William arrive?"
she asked. 4 days. Clara closed the satchel.
"Then we have 4 days to decide."
She turned and walked toward the house. After a moment, Jacob followed. That night, they sat in the study together. It was the first time they'd been alone in a room since that morning in the kitchen, 2 weeks ago. Clara felt the weight of it pressing on her chest.
"Tell me what happened to you,"
she said suddenly. Jacob looked up from the documents he'd been organizing. "What?"
3 years. You disappeared for 3 years."
Clara set down her pen.
"I need to understand. I need to know what changed you."
Jacob was silent for a long moment. Then he leaned back in his chair. "When I fell in that river, I hit my head on something. Rocks, maybe. I don't remember." His voice was distant. "I washed up on a bank about 20 miles downstream. A family found me. Farmers. They had nothing, Clara, barely enough to feed themselves. But they took me in, nursed me back to health, never asked for anything in return."
"Did you tell them who you were?"
"I couldn't. I didn't remember." Jacob's eyes were far away. "For 3 months, I didn't know my own name. I was just a man. Nobody. And in those months, I learned something I'd never understood before."
"What?"
"What it means to earn your place." Jacob looked at her. "Those farmers worked every day just to survive. They didn't have titles or money or land. They had each other. They had their hands. And they had dignity that I'd never possessed despite everything I owned." Clara felt something crack in her chest. "When did you remember?" 4th month. It came back in pieces. My name. This ranch. You." His voice roughened. "And when I remembered you, Clara, when I remembered how I'd treated you, I couldn't come back. Not yet. I was too ashamed."
So you stayed away.
I worked. I did every hard job I could find. I learned what it meant to be tired down to your bones, to earn respect instead of demanding it. And slowly, I started to become someone different.
Why didn't you send word?
Jacob's eyes glistened. Because I was afraid. Afraid that if I came back too soon, before I'd really changed, I would hurt you again. And I couldn't. His voice broke. I couldn't do that to you again, Clara. Not after everything I'd already done. The silence stretched between them. Clara stood. She walked to the window, her back to him.
I used to pray for you to die.
She heard Jacob's sharp intake of breath.
Not out loud, not to anyone.
But in my head, in my heart, I would lie in bed at night and pray that God would take you away so I could finally breathe. Her voice was barely a whisper.
And when they told me you were dead, I felt
relief. She turned. Jacob was watching her with an expression she'd never seen before. Understanding.
Yes.
Tears spilled down her cheeks.
I felt relief that my husband was dead. What kind of woman does that make me?
Jacob stood slowly. He crossed the room and stopped just in front of her. It makes you human, he said. It makes you a woman who was suffocating in a marriage that gave her nothing. It makes you someone who deserved better than what I gave you.
I should have grieved.
You should have been free. Jacob reached out, hesitated, then gently wiped a tear from her cheek. I did that to you, Clara. I made you feel that the only way you could live was if I died. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make that right.
Clara caught his hand before he could pull away.
They stood there, frozen, her fingers wrapped around his wrist. She could feel his pulse racing beneath her touch. I don't know if I can forgive you, she whispered. I know. I don't know if I can trust you. I know that too. But She stopped. The words caught in her throat. What? Jacob's voice was raw. Clara looked up at him. This man who had made her invisible. This man who had changed himself from the ground up. This man who had ridden to Helena and back to protect her. I want to try, she said. Jacob's breath shuddered out of him. He raised his other hand, cupped her face gently. That's enough, he said. That's more than enough. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was soft, tentative. Nothing like the perfunctory touches of their marriage. This was a question, an offering, a beginning. When they pulled apart, Clara's heart was racing.
We should get some sleep,
she said quietly. Yes. Jacob stepped back.
Clara? Yes?
Thank you for letting me try. She nodded and left the study. In her room, she pressed her fingers to her lips and allowed herself, for the first time, to hope. But hope, she would learn, was a dangerous thing. Because 3 days later, when William Dawson's carriage rolled through the gates of the ranch, he didn't come alone. He brought a lawyer. He brought a judge. And he brought a document that changed everything.
What is this?
Clara stared at the paper William had placed on the table. It's a court order. William's smile was thin, satisfied. Signed by Judge Morrison of Helena. It declares that Jacob Dawson, having been legally deceased for 3 years, forfeits all claim to properties transferred during his absence.
That's not possible.
It's entirely possible. William turned to the judge, a thin man with cold eyes.
Isn't that right, Your Honor?
The law is clear, Judge Morrison said flatly. When a man is declared dead, his assets transfer to his legal heir. If that man subsequently returns, he cannot simply reclaim what was lawfully given to another. Clara felt the blood drain from her face.
But Jacob is alive. He's standing right here.
And the ranch is mine, William's voice hardened. It has been for 3 years. This document simply confirms what the law already states.
Jacob stepped forward, his fists clenched.
You paid him off.
I beg your pardon?
The judge. You paid him to rule in your favor.
Morrison's face reddened.
That is a serious accusation, Mr. Dawson.
It's the truth. Jacob turned to Clara. The satchel. Get it.
Clara ran to the study and returned with the leather satchel. She thrust it at William.
Open it.
William's eyes narrowed. What is this?
Proof.
Jacob's voice was steady now, controlled.
Proof that you've been embezzling from this ranch for 2 years.
Proof that you've been covering gambling debts with money that doesn't belong to you. Proof that you're a fraud, William. The color drained from William's face. He grabbed the satchel, rifled through the documents, and his hands began to shake.
Where did you get these?
From Sullivan. Remember him? The man you've been avoiding for 3 years? Jacob stepped closer. He was very interested to learn that you've been lying to him about your finances. Very interested indeed. William looked at the judge. Morrison was reading one of the documents, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. This appears to be evidence of embezzlement, Morrison said slowly.
It's fabricated, William sputtered.
These are your ledgers, Jacob pointed. Your handwriting, your signatures. I have witnesses who will testify to their authenticity. The room fell silent. William's face twisted with rage.
You think you can threaten me? You think a few pieces of paper will change anything?
I think, Jacob said quietly, that you have a choice to make.
What choice?
Jacob reached into his pocket and pulled out another document. This is a transfer of ownership. It signs all rights to Dawson Ranch over to Clara Jane Dawson. Permanently. Irrevocably. William laughed. You expect me to sign that? I expect you to consider the alternative. Jacob's voice hardened. If you refuse, these documents go to every creditor you owe, every business partner you've cheated, every man who trusted you with their money. You'll be ruined, William. Not just financially. Completely. You're bluffing. Try me. The brothers stared at each other. Clara held her breath. Finally, William grabbed the pen from the table. You'll regret this, he hissed. Both of you. He signed the document. Jacob took it, checked the signature, and handed it to Clara. It's done, he said.
The ranch is yours, legally,
Permanently yours. Clara stared at the paper in her hands. Her name. Her ranch. Hers. She looked up at Jacob. He was watching her with an expression she had never seen before. Love. Unguarded. Unconditional love.
Thank you,
she whispered. Don't thank me. Jacob took her hand. You built this. You saved it. I just made sure no one could take it away. William stormed out of the house, the judge hurrying behind him. Clara barely noticed. All she could see was Jacob. All she could feel was hope. The night after William left, Clara couldn't stop staring at the document. She sat in the study, the lamp burning low, tracing her fingers over the words. Clara Jane Dawson, owner, legal proprietor of Dawson Ranch. Her name, her land, hers. Martha found her there past midnight. You gonna sleep at all tonight? Clara looked up. I keep thinking I'll wake up and it'll be gone. It ain't going nowhere. Martha crossed the room and stood beside her.
That piece of paper is real as the ground we're standing on.
He signed it over. Jacob made William sign it all over to me." "I know. I was there." Clara set down the document.
"Why would he do that?"
"Why you think?"
"I don't know."
Clara pressed her hands flat on the desk.
"The Jacob I married would never have given up control. He would never have—"
"That ain't the Jacob who came back." Martha's voice was gentle. "That man out there, the one who rode to Helena and back, who faced down his own brother, he ain't the same man who left." Clara closed her eyes.
"I'm scared, Martha."
"Of what?"
"Of believing it. Of trusting him." Her voice cracked. "Of hoping."
Martha was quiet for a moment. Then she placed her hand on Clara's shoulder. "Hope ain't weakness, Miss Clara. Hope is what kept you going 3 years alone. Hope is what built this ranch back from nothing." She squeezed gently. "Maybe it's time to let that hope point somewhere new." Clara didn't answer, but when Martha left, she folded the document carefully and pressed it against her heart. The next morning, Clara found Jacob in the barn. He was brushing down his horse, moving slowly, deliberately. When he heard her footsteps, he didn't turn around. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. "Haven't slept well in 3 years." Clara stepped closer. "Jacob." He turned then. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted, but there was something else in them too. Something that looked like peace. "I keep thinking about what you said," Clara told him. "About spending the rest of your life making things right." "I meant it." "I know you did." She took a breath. "That's what scares me." Jacob set down the brush. "You're scared of me meaning it?" "I'm scared of what happens if you do." Clara wrapped her arms around herself. "For 3 years, I built a life without you. I learned who I was when I wasn't your wife. And now—" "Now you don't know who you are with me." She nodded, her throat tight. Jacob crossed the space between them slowly, giving her time to step back. She didn't. "You don't have to know yet," he said quietly. "You don't have to have it all figured out. I'm not asking you to be my wife the way you were before. I'm asking for the chance to show you who I can be now." "And who is that?" "Someone who sees you." His voice roughened. "Someone who values every word you speak, every decision you make. Someone who wants to stand beside you, not above you." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "You really mean that?" "I've never meant anything more." She reached up and touched his face. His skin was rough with stubble, warm beneath her fingers. "Then prove it," she whispered. "Every day. Prove it." "I will." He pulled her close, and Clara let herself be held. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was disappearing. But peace, she would learn, was fragile. 3 days later, Thomas Brennan rode in hard from the east pasture. "Fire!" he shouted. "The east barn is burning!" Clara ran. The smoke was visible before she reached the pasture, a thick, black column rising against the summer sky. The barn where they stored the winter feed was engulfed in flames. "Get water!" Silas was already organizing the hands. "Buckets, barrels, anything you can find!" Jacob grabbed her arm. "Clara, stay back." "That's 6 months of feed in there." She pulled free. "We lose that, we lose the cattle." "You can replace feed. You can't replace yourself." But Clara was already running toward the water pump. For 2 hours they fought the fire. Smoke burned Clara's lungs. Her arms ached from hauling water. Her eyes streamed with tears that had nothing to do with grief. But they couldn't save it. The barn collapsed just before noon, taking everything with it. Clara stood in the ashes, her face streaked with soot and sweat. "How did this happen?" she demanded. Silas shook his head. "Lightning, maybe, Or, it wasn't lightning. Thomas Brennan's voice was grim. He held up a scorched piece of cloth. Found this near the back wall, soaked in kerosene. Clara's blood ran cold. Someone set this fire deliberately. Looks like it. Jacob took the cloth, examined it, and his expression hardened. William, you don't know that. I know my brother. Jacob's voice was tight with rage. This is exactly what he'd do. He can't take the ranch legally, so he'll destroy it piece by piece. Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. He'd burn down his own family's property? It's not his anymore. You heard what he said when he left. Jacob met her eyes. He said we'd regret it. This is what he meant. Clara stared at the smoking ruins. 6 months of feed. Gone. If they couldn't replace it before winter, they'd have to sell half the herd just to keep the rest alive. What do we do? She asked.
We find proof, and then we stop him.
But proof was harder to find than they expected. Jacob rode out that afternoon, questioning the neighbors, checking the roads. No one had seen William or his men near the ranch. No one had noticed anything unusual. He's covering his tracks, Jacob told Clara that night. He probably hired someone who can't be connected to him. Then how do we prove it was him? I don't know yet, but I will find a way. Clara paced the study, her mind racing. We need to buy more feed, now, before word gets out and the prices go up. How much? $300, maybe more. She stopped. We don't have it. I do. Clara turned. Jacob was reaching into his pocket, pulling out a worn leather pouch. I earned this in Wyoming, he said, working cattle drives. It's not much, but it's something. That's your money. There is no my money, not anymore. He pressed the pouch into her hands. Take it. Use it. Buy what you need.
Clara felt the weight of the coins in her palm.
This is everything you have. No, Jacob's voice was soft. You're everything I have. This is just money. She wanted to argue. Pride demanded she refuse his help, maintain her independence. But the ranch needed this. The cattle needed this. I'll pay you back, she said. I don't want you to. I will anyway. Jacob smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him since his return. I know you will. The next week passed in a blur of work and worry. Clara sent Silas to Helena to buy feed. She doubled the night patrols. She kept the hands armed and watchful. And every night she lay awake, waiting for the next attack. It came on a Sunday. Clara was in the kitchen with Martha when they heard the shouting. Riders coming in! Armed riders! Clara grabbed her father's rifle from above the fireplace and ran outside. 6 men sat on horses at the ranch gate. They wore dusters and carried shotguns. At their head was a man Clara didn't recognize. Lean, sun-weathered, with cold eyes. Mrs. Dawson, he called out. Clara raised the rifle. Who's asking? Name's Garrett Cole. I work for Mr. William Dawson. William doesn't own this ranch anymore. That's what I hear. Cole smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. But Mr. Dawson believes there's been some misunderstanding. He sent us to help clear things up. There's no misunderstanding. I have the deed. The ranch is mine. Deeds can be lost. Cole's voice hardened. Fires happen. Accidents happen. Sometimes women living alone out here find themselves in trouble they can't handle. Clara felt the fear crawling up her spine, but she didn't lower the rifle. Are you threatening me? I'm offering advice. Mr. Dawson is a generous man. He's willing to buy this ranch at a fair price. All you have to do is sign, and you can walk away with money in your pocket and your health intact.
And if I refuse?
Cole shrugged. Then things might get difficult. They already are. The voice came from behind Clara. She turned. Jacob stood on the porch, a shotgun in his hands. Behind him, Silas and Thomas and 4 other ranch hands spread out, all of them armed. Cole's smile faded. Jacob, didn't expect to see you here. That's your first mistake. Jacob descended the porch steps slowly. Your second was threatening my wife. Your wife? Cole laughed. Word is she kicked you out years ago. Word is wrong. Is it? Cole looked at Clara. Ma'am, the offer stands. $5,000 for the property. It's more than fair. The answer is no. You might want to reconsider. She said no. Jacob raised his shotgun. Now you have 2 choices. Ride out of here and tell my brother his money won't buy what isn't for sale. Or stay and see what happens. Cole's men shifted nervously, 6 against 8, with Jacob Dawson staring them down. The standoff lasted a full minute. Then Cole turned his horse. This isn't over. Yes, Jacob said quietly. It is. The riders left. Clara lowered her rifle. Her hands were shaking. He'll be back, she said. Probably. With more men. Maybe. Jacob set down his shotgun. But so will we. What do you mean? I mean it's time to stop playing defense. His eyes were hard. William wants a war. I'm going to give him one. That night, Jacob gathered everyone in the dining room. The ranch hands, Martha, Silas, Thomas. They all crowded around the table while Jacob spread out a map of the territory. William's not going to stop, he said. He's lost the legal battle, so now he's going to try to force Clara out. Fires, threats, intimidation. He'll keep pushing until we break. Then what do we do? Thomas asked. We push back. Jacob pointed to the map. William's staying at the Morrison Hotel in Helena. He's got maybe a dozen men, but most of them are hired guns. They're not loyal. They're just getting paid. So we outbid him? Silas asked. We don't need to. We just need to make working for him more trouble than it's worth. Jacob looked around the room. I'm going to Helena tomorrow. I'm going to find Garrett Cole and every man who rode with him, and I'm going to make them understand that harming this ranch means answering to me. You can't take on a dozen men alone, Clara said. I won't be alone. Jacob turned to Silas. How many friends do you have in Helena? Men who owe you favors. Silas considered. 6, maybe? Good men. They'd ride if I asked. Ask them. And what about William himself? Martha spoke up. Cole and his men are just tools. William's the one pulling the strings. Jacob's jaw tightened. I'll handle William. How? The way I should have handled him years ago. Jacob's voice was cold. By making him face the consequences of his actions. Clara stood. I'm coming with you. No. This is my ranch, my fight. And you're needed here. Jacob took her hands. If something happens to me in Helena, the ranch still needs its owner. The hands still need their leader. You can't risk yourself. I can't risk you either. The words came out before Clara could stop them. The room fell silent. Jacob squeezed her hands. I'll come back, I promise. You promised before. I know. He lifted her hands to his lips. This time is different. This time I have something worth coming back to. Clara felt tears threatening. She forced them down. If you're not back in 3 days, I'm coming after you. I wouldn't expect anything less. Jacob left at dawn. Clara watched him ride away, her heart heavy with fear. Martha stood beside her, saying nothing. He'll be all right, Martha said finally. You don't know that. No, But I believe it." Martha turned to face her.
"That man loves you, Miss Clara. Real love, the kind that changes a person. He ain't gonna let anything keep him from coming back to you."
Clara wanted to believe her. She wanted to trust, to hope, to let go of the fear that had protected her for so long. But 3 years of building walls didn't come down in a few weeks. "Let's get to work," she said. "The cattle won't tend themselves." The first day passed without word. Clara threw herself into the ranch work, pushing harder than ever. She checked every fence, counted every head of cattle, reviewed every ledger. Anything to keep her mind off Jacob. The second day, a rider came. Clara's heart jumped when she saw the dust cloud, but it wasn't Jacob. It was a young man she didn't recognize, carrying a message. "Mrs. Dawson?" "Yes?" "This is for you, from Helena." Clara took the letter. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The handwriting was William's. "Dear sister-in-law, I believe you have something that belongs to me. I now have something that belongs to you. If you want to see your husband alive again, you'll bring the deed to the Morrison Hotel within 2 days. Come alone. Tell no one. Your devoted brother, William Dawson." Clara read the letter 3 times. Each time, the words hit her like a physical blow. Jacob was captured. William had him. And if she wanted him back, she had to give up everything. Martha found her standing frozen in the yard. "Miss Clara, what is it?" Clara handed her the letter without a word. Martha read it. Her face went gray. "Lord have mercy! He has Jacob. You don't know that for sure. This could be a trick." "And if it's not?" Clara's voice cracked. "If William really has him? If I don't go? If I don't bring the deed? Then William wins." Martha grabbed her shoulders. "Don't you see? That's what he wants. He wants you to panic, to give in, to hand over everything you fought for." "I don't care about the ranch!" The words exploded out of her. Clara felt the tears finally break free, streaming down her face. "I don't care about the deed or the cattle or any of it. I care about Jacob. He came back for me, Martha. He changed everything about himself for me. And now he's—" She couldn't finish. Martha pulled her close. "Hush now. Hush." Clara sobbed into her shoulder. All the walls she'd built, all the strength she'd gathered, it crumbled like ash. "What do I do?" she whispered. "Martha, what do I do?" Martha held her tighter. "You do what you always do, Miss Clara. You fight. But you fight smart." She pulled back, cupping Clara's face in her hands. "You ain't going to Helena alone. And you ain't giving up that deed. We're going to get your man back, and we're going to make William Dawson wish he'd never been born." Clara wiped her eyes. "How?" "By being smarter than him." Martha's eyes were fierce. "Now come on. We got planning to do." By nightfall, they had a plan. Silas would ride to Helena first, gather the men who'd promised to help. Thomas would stay at the ranch with the other hands, keeping the place secure. And Clara would go to the Morrison Hotel, but not alone, and not with the real deed. "A forgery?" Clara asked, examining the document Martha had prepared. "Good enough to fool him for a few minutes. That's all we need." Martha handed her a small pistol. "You know how to use this?" "My father taught me." "Good. Keep it hidden. And remember, the goal is to get Jacob out. Nothing else matters." Clara tucked the pistol into her skirt. Her hands had stopped shaking. In their place was something harder, colder. Purpose. "I'm going to get him back," she said. "I know you are." Clara rode out at midnight. The summer stars burned overhead as she pushed her horse toward Helena. She didn't let herself think about what might be waiting. Didn't let herself imagine the worst.
Jacob was alive. He had to be alive.
And she was going to find him. The Morrison Hotel loomed against the Helena skyline, 3 stories of brick and false promises. Clara tied her horse in the alley and made her way to the back entrance. Silas was waiting in the shadows. "My men are in position," he whispered. 3 at the front, 2 at the back. Cole and his boys are inside, but most of them are drunk. It's just William and 2 guards with your husband." "Where?" "3rd floor. Room at the end of the hall." Clara touched the pistol hidden in her skirt. "Let's go." They climbed the back stairs in silence. The hotel was quiet, most guests asleep at this hour. On the 3rd floor, Clara could hear voices from the end of the hall. "Told you she wouldn't come." That was William. "Give it time. She's a woman. Women are sentimental." Garrett Cole. "She has until dawn. After that—" Clara pushed open the door. William spun around. Cole's hand went to his gun. And there, tied to a chair in the corner, was Jacob. His face was bruised, his lips split, but his eyes were alive. When he saw Clara, something like terror crossed his features. "No," he said. "Clara, don't. I brought what you wanted." Clara held up the forged deed. "Now let him go." William smiled. "I knew you'd come." "The deed for my husband. That was the deal." So it was. William reached for the document. Clara pulled it back. "Release him first." "I don't think so." William nodded to Cole. "Take it from her." Cole stepped forward. Clara's hand dropped to her skirt. "I wouldn't," she said quietly. "Or what? You'll shoot me?" Cole laughed. "You're one woman against—" The back door burst open. Silas and 4 armed men poured into the room. "Against a lot more than you expected," Silas finished. Cole froze. William's face went pale. "Let him go," Clara said again. "Now." William looked at the guns pointed at him, at his guards who had wisely dropped their weapons, at his brother, still tied to the chair.
"This isn't over," he hissed. "Yes, it is."
Clara walked to Jacob and began untying his bonds. "You're going to leave Montana, tonight, and you're never going to come back." "You can't." "I can." Clara freed Jacob's hands and helped him stand. "Because if you don't, these men will tell everyone in the territory what you've done. The embezzlement, the arson, the kidnapping. You'll be lucky if you only go to prison." William's face twisted with rage. "You think you've won?" "I know I have." Clara supported Jacob's weight as they moved toward the door. "Goodbye, William." They left him standing in that hotel room, surrounded by armed men and the ruins of his schemes. And Clara never looked back. Outside, Jacob collapsed against her. "You shouldn't have come." "Shut up." "Clara, I'm serious. If something had happened to you—" "Nothing happened." She cupped his battered face in her hands. "I told you, I wasn't going to lose you again." Jacob stared at her. In his eyes, she saw something break. The last wall, the final resistance. "I love you," he said. "I've loved you since the day I came back, maybe longer. And I know I don't deserve—" Clara kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was 3 years of loneliness and 6 weeks of hope and 1 desperate night of fear, all poured into a single moment. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Take me home," she said. Jacob nodded. And together, leaning on each other, they walked out into the Montana night. The ride back to the ranch took 6 hours. Clara kept Jacob close, her arm around his waist, his body leaning against hers. He was hurt worse than she'd first realized. 2 broken ribs, bruises covering half his torso, a cut above his eye that wouldn't stop bleeding. "You should have let them kill me," Jacob muttered. "Don't talk." "Clara, I mean it. What you risked." "I said don't talk." Her voice cracked. "I just got you back."
I'm not ready to hear how I should have let you go. Jacob fell silent, but his hand found hers in the dark and held on tight.
They reached the ranch as dawn broke. Martha was waiting on the porch. When she saw Jacob's condition, her face went hard. "Get him inside. I'll fetch water and bandages." They half-carried him to the guest room. Clara helped lower him onto the bed, and he groaned as his ribs shifted.
"Easy," she whispered. "I've had worse."
"When?" Jacob managed a weak smile. "Wyoming. Got kicked by a horse. Thought I was dying."
"You're not allowed to die."
Clara brushed the hair from his forehead.
"Not now. Not ever."
Martha returned with supplies. For the next hour, they cleaned his wounds, wrapped his ribs, stitched the cut above his eye. Jacob bore it all in silence, his jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on Clara. When it was done, Martha stepped back. "He needs rest. At least a week, maybe 2. "I can work," Jacob started. "You can lie there and heal." Martha's tone left no room for argument. "Miss Clara, make sure he stays put." She left. Clara pulled a chair beside the bed and sat. "You heard her. I'm not an invalid. You have 2 broken ribs and enough bruises to paint a barn." Clara took his hand. "For once in your life, Jacob Dawson, let someone take care of you." Something shifted in his expression. The hardness softened. The pride crumbled. "I'm not used to being taken care of." "I know. My whole life I had to be strong, had to be in control, had to—" He stopped, his voice catching. "Had to what?" "Had to be perfect." Jacob closed his eyes. "My father. He was a hard man. Nothing was ever good enough for him. Every mistake was a weakness. Every weakness was unforgivable. I learned early that showing vulnerability meant getting hurt." Clara felt her chest tighten. In 4 years of marriage, Jacob had never spoken of his father, never spoken of his childhood. She had assumed his coldness was simply who he was.
"Is that why you were the way you were? With me?"
"I don't know." Jacob opened his eyes. "Maybe. Or maybe I was just a coward who didn't know how to love someone without pushing them away."
"And now?"
"Now I'm terrified." The word hung between them.
"Terrified of what?"
"Of losing you. Of hurting you again. Of being the man I was." His grip on her hand tightened. "When William had me, when I thought I might never see you again, all I could think about was everything I wasted. Every day I ignored you. Every night I slept alone when I could have been beside you. 4 years of nothing, Clara. 4 years of emptiness." Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. She didn't wipe them away.
"I wasted those years too."
"No, you survived. You built something.
"You survived too."
Clara leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his.
"Different circumstances, different paths, but we both made it here."
"Here." Jacob's voice was barely a whisper. "Where is here?"
"I don't know yet."
She pulled back just enough to look at him. "But I want to find out." Jacob reached up and touched her face. His fingers were rough, calloused from weeks of work, but gentle. "Stay with me?"
"I'm not going anywhere."
"No, I mean—" He hesitated. "Stay. Here. Tonight." Clara's heart stuttered. In 4 years of marriage, they had never simply slept beside each other. Their nights had been brief, functional, devoid of tenderness. This was different.
"Your ribs."
"I don't care about my ribs." Jacob's eyes held hers. "I just want to wake up and know you're still there." Clara kicked off her boots. She climbed onto the bed carefully, settling beside him without touching his injured side. Jacob shifted until his arm was around her, until her head rested on his shoulder. "Is this all right?" he asked.
"This is perfect."
They lay there as the morning light filled the room. Clara listened to Jacob's heartbeat, steady and strong despite everything. "Clara?"
"Yes?"
"Thank you for coming for me. I'll always come for you." She felt him press a kiss to the top of her head, and then, for the first time in longer than she could remember, Clara fell asleep, feeling safe. The days that followed were strange and tender. Jacob healed slowly. The bruises faded from purple to yellow to green. His ribs knitted back together. The cut above his eye became a thin scar that Clara found herself tracing with her finger when she thought he was asleep. He wasn't always asleep. "That tickles," he murmured one morning. Clara jerked her hand back. "I thought you were—" "I know." Jacob caught her hand and brought it back to his face. "I didn't say stop." Something warm unfurled in Clara's chest. She traced the scar again, then let her fingers drift down his cheek, his jaw, the curve of his neck. Jacob's breath caught. "Clara." "Yes?" "If you keep doing that, I'm going to kiss you." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning." She smiled. "Consider me warned." He kissed her then, slow and deep. Nothing like the desperate press of lips outside the hotel. This was deliberate, intentional, a question asked and answered without words. When they broke apart, Clara was trembling. "Jacob." "Too fast?" "No." She shook her head. "Not fast enough." His eyes darkened. "Your call." Clara looked at this man, her husband, her stranger, her second chance, and made a decision. "Tonight," she said, "when you're stronger." "I'm strong enough now." "Liar." She pressed a finger to his lips. "Tonight. I want to do this right." Jacob kissed her finger. "Tonight." But tonight would have to wait. That afternoon, Silas rode in with news. "William's gone," he reported. "Took the first train east. Word is he's heading to Chicago, maybe further." Clara felt something unclench in her chest. "He won't come back?" "Doubt it. I made sure everyone in Helena knows what he did. His reputation is ruined. He'll be lucky if he can find work sweeping floors."
Thank you, Silas.
"Don't thank me yet." Silas's expression was grim. "There's something else."
What?
"Garrett Cole. He didn't leave with William." Clara's blood ran cold. "Where is he?" "That's the problem. No one knows. He disappeared the night we took Jacob back. Some folks think he rode south toward Wyoming. Others think he's still here." Silas nodded slowly. "That's my guess. Man like Cole doesn't forget when someone makes a fool of him. He'll be looking for payback." "Then we need to find him first." "Already on it. Thomas and the boys are searching the territory. If Cole's still around, we'll flush him out." Silas left. Clara stood in the kitchen, her hands gripping the counter until her knuckles went white. Martha found her there. "I heard. Cole's out there somewhere, waiting." "Maybe, maybe not." Martha placed a hand on her shoulder. "Either way, you can't spend your life looking over your shoulder."
How can I not? Because you have something worth living for. Martha turned Clara to face her. That man upstairs, the one who's waiting for tonight, you gonna let Garrett Cole take that from you? Clara's jaw tightened. "No." "Then don't. Be careful, yes, be watchful, but don't let fear steal what you finally found." Clara nodded slowly. Martha was right. She had spent 3 years building a life out of ashes. She wasn't going to let one hired gun burn it down again. "Tell Jacob I'll be up in a few minutes." "Tell him yourself," Martha smiled. "And Miss Clara? Lock the door tonight." Clara's face flushed. "Martha!" "What? I've got eyes. Just saying." Martha walked away, chuckling. Clara stood there, her heart racing for an entirely different reason now. She climbed the stairs. Jacob was sitting up in bed, his color better, his eyes alert. "I heard voices. Everything all right?" Clara closed the door behind her. "William's gone, left the territory." "Good."
Cole disappeared. Jacob's expression hardened.
"That's not good. Silas is looking for him. I should be out there too." "You should be healing." Clara crossed to the bed. "Your ribs aren't ready." "My ribs are fine." "Liar." She sat beside him. "Jacob, please, let me handle this." "Let you handle a hired killer?" "Let me handle my ranch, my people, my problem." Jacob studied her face. "You're not scared." "I'm terrified, but I'm also tired of hiding." Clara took his hands. "I spent 4 years being invisible, 3 years being alone. I don't want to spend the rest of my life being afraid." "You won't have to." Jacob pulled her closer. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Together. The word felt foreign in her mouth. Good foreign. New foreign. "Tonight," Jacob said quietly. "Tonight." Clara leaned in and kissed him softly. "Now rest. You'll need your strength." "For Cole?" Clara smiled against his lips. "For me." She left him staring after her, a look of wonder on his battered face. The sun set slowly that evening. Clara bathed, dressed in a simple white nightgown, brushed her hair until it gleamed. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 3 years ago, this woman had buried a wedding ring and felt relief instead of grief. Tonight, this woman was choosing love. She walked to Jacob's room. He was standing by the window, dressed in clean clothes borrowed from Silas. When he turned and saw her, his breath stopped. "Clara!" "Jacob?" She crossed the room. He met her halfway. "Are you sure?" he asked, his hands hovering at her waist. "If this is too fast, if you need more time—" "I've had 3 years of time." Clara placed her hands on his chest. "I don't want more time. I want you." "Clara Jane Dawson." His voice was rough with emotion. "I have loved you since the day I came back. Maybe since before I left. And I will spend every day of my life proving I deserve you." "Then start now." He kissed her. This time there was no hesitation, no holding back. 3 years of loneliness and 6 weeks of hope, and 1 terrible night of almost losing each other. All of it poured into this moment. Clara felt herself falling, and for the first time, she didn't try to catch herself. She let go. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the sheets. Jacob traced patterns on her bare shoulder. Clara listened to his heartbeat, steady now, calm. "I never knew," she whispered. "Knew what?" "That it could be like this." She lifted her head to look at him. "Before, when we were married, it was never like this." "I know." Shame flickered in his eyes. "I was distant, mechanical. I didn't know how to—" "You didn't want to." "I thought I didn't." Jacob cupped her face. "I was wrong. About everything." Clara kissed his palm. "We were both wrong." "And now?" "Now we start over." She settled back against his chest. "For real this time." Jacob held her tighter. For real. Sleep came eventually.
Deep, dreamless sleep. The kind Clara hadn't known in years. But peace, as always, was temporary. Clara woke to the sound of gunfire. She sat bolt upright, her heart pounding. Beside her, Jacob was already moving, pulling on his trousers, grabbing for his boots. "Stay here." "The hell I will." Clara pulled on her nightgown and grabbed the pistol from the bedside table. Together, they ran downstairs. The yard was chaos. 3 fires burned in the outbuildings. The hands were running with buckets, shouting, trying to contain the flames. And there, in the middle of it all, sat Garrett Cole on horseback, a rifle in his hands. "Evening, folks," he called out. "Hope I'm not interrupting anything." Jacob pushed Clara behind him. "Cole." "Dawson." Cole smiled, that same cold smile Clara remembered from the hotel. "Heard you and the missus were having a nice evening. Thought I'd drop by and say hello." "You're making a mistake." "Am I?" Cole raised his rifle. "The way I see it, your brother paid me good money to do a job. Job ain't done until you're both in the ground. William's gone. He can't pay you now. This ain't about money anymore." Cole's eyes hardened. "This is about reputation. You made me look like a fool in Helena. I don't take kindly to that." "Then take it up with me." Jacob stepped forward. "Leave her out of it." "Can't do that." Cole aimed his rifle at Clara. "She's the one who held a gun to my face. She's the one who needs to learn what happens when you cross Garrett Cole." Clara's hand tightened on her pistol. She was fast, maybe faster than Cole expected. But his rifle was already aimed. If she moved, if she tried to draw... A shot rang out. Clara screamed. But it wasn't Cole who fell. It was Thomas Brennan, rising from the shadows with a smoking rifle in his hands. His bullet caught Cole in the shoulder, spinning him off his horse. "Get down!" Thomas shouted. Clara dropped. Jacob covered her with his body. More shots rang out. The hands had found their weapons, were returning fire at Cole's men. It was over in minutes. When Clara lifted her head, Garrett Cole lay in the dirt, clutching his shoulder. His men were either dead or fleeing into the night. Silas kicked Cole's rifle away. "Don't move." Cole laughed, blood staining his teeth. Should have known you'd have backup." Jacob walked toward him slowly. Clara followed, her pistol still in her hand. "You're done," Jacob said. "You can either hang for what you did, or you can disappear. Your choice." "Some choice. More than you would have given us." Cole looked at Clara. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or just surprise. "She's got fire, your woman. I'll give you that." "She's not my woman." Jacob took Clara's hand. "I'm hers." Clara felt her heart swell. Thomas hauled Cole to his feet. "What do you want us to do with him?" Clara looked at the man who had threatened her life, burned her buildings, tried to destroy everything she'd built. She should want him dead. She should want revenge. But she was tired of violence, tired of fear. "Take him to the sheriff in Helena," she said. "Let the law deal with him." "Clara," Jacob started. "I mean it." She met his eyes. "I'm done fighting. I want to live." Jacob studied her face. Then he nodded. "You heard her. Get him out of here." Thomas and Silas dragged Cole away. The fires were dying down now, the hands working together to contain what was left. Clara stood in the middle of her ranch, surrounded by smoke and chaos, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Jacob put his arm around her. "You all right?" "I think so." "That was brave, what you said." "It was tired." Clara leaned into him. "I'm so tired, Jacob." "I know." He kissed her temple. "Let's go inside." They walked back to the house. Martha was waiting on the porch, her face drawn with worry. "Everyone all right?" "Everyone's all right." Clara hugged her. "It's over." "Thank the Lord." Martha pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I'll make coffee." "Make it strong." Inside, Clara and Jacob sat at the kitchen table. The night stretched toward dawn. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Jacob broke the silence. "Clara?" "Yes?" "Will you marry me?" Clara blinked. "We're already married." "I know, but that marriage, it wasn't real. It was an arrangement, a transaction." Jacob took her hands. "I want to marry you for real. I want to stand in front of everyone we know and promise to love you, honor you, choose you, every day, for the rest of my life." Clara felt tears streaming down her face. "Jacob." "You don't have to answer now. I know I'm asking a lot. I know I haven't earned it yet, but—" "Yes." Jacob stopped. "What?" "Yes." Clara laughed through her tears. "Yes, I'll marry you." "You will?" "Ask me again and I might change my mind." Jacob pulled her into his arms. He was laughing too, a sound she had barely heard in 6 years of knowing him. "I love you," he said against her hair. "God, Clara, I love you." "I love you too." The words came easily now, naturally, like they had always been waiting to be spoken. "I love you, Jacob Dawson." Martha came in with the coffee and stopped short. "Well," she said, a smile spreading across her face. "About time." Clara laughed. Jacob laughed. And somewhere outside, the sun was beginning to rise. A new day, a new beginning, a second chance finally seized. The wedding was set for 3 weeks later. Clara had wanted something simple, a quiet ceremony, just family and the hands. But word spread fast in Montana territory, and by the time the day arrived, half the county had invited themselves. "I don't know these people," Clara said, watching wagons roll up the road. "They know you." Martha adjusted the flowers in Clara's hair. "You saved this ranch. You stood up to William Dawson. You faced down Garrett Cole. People talk." "I didn't do any of it for attention." "That's exactly why they're here." Martha stepped back and studied her work. "You look beautiful." Clara turned to the mirror. The dress was simple, white cotton, hand-sewn by Martha over the past 2 weeks. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. But it fit her perfectly, and when she looked at her reflection, she didn't see the tired widow she'd been 3 years ago. She saw someone new. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of what?" "Of being happy." Clara touched her face in the mirror. "I spent so long surviving, fighting, holding on. I don't know how to just live." Martha came up behind her and placed her hands on Clara's shoulders. "You learn, same way you learned everything else, one day at a time." A knock at the door interrupted them. "Clara!" Jacob's voice came through the wood. "Can I talk to you?" "You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony." "I won't look. I just need to say something." Clara glanced at Martha, who shrugged. She walked to the door and pressed her palm against it. "I'm listening." "I know you're scared." Jacob's voice was low, just for her. "I am too. But I want you to know that whatever happens today, whatever happens tomorrow, or next year, or 30 years from now, I will never stop choosing you. You are my home, Clara. You always have been." Clara felt tears threatening. "Jacob." "That's all. I just needed you to know." She heard his footsteps moving away. Martha was dabbing at her own eyes. "That man," she said. "Lord have mercy, that man." Clara laughed through her tears. "I know." An hour later, she walked out onto the porch. The yard was full of people. Neighbors, townsfolk, ranch hands from 3 counties. They stood in clusters, talking, laughing, waiting. When Clara appeared, a hush fell over the crowd. Jacob stood at the far end of the yard, under the old oak tree where Clara had buried his ring 3 years ago. He was wearing his best clothes, the ones he'd borrowed from Silas, now cleaned and pressed. His hair was combed, his beard trimmed, and when he saw her, his face transformed. Clara had never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at her now. She walked toward him. The crowd parted to let her pass. She felt their eyes on her, heard the whispers, but none of it mattered. Only Jacob mattered. When she reached him, he took her hands. "You came. Where else would I be?" The preacher cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony was simple. Clara barely heard the words. She was too busy watching Jacob's face, seeing the tears he wasn't quite holding back, feeling the trembling in his hands. "Do you, Jacob Nathaniel Dawson, take this woman to be your wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do you part?" "I do." Jacob's voice was steady, strong. "I do, and I will, and I swear it on everything I am." "Do you, Clara Jane Dawson, take this man to be your husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do you part?" Clara looked at Jacob, this man who had been her prison, this man who had become her partner, this man who had torn himself apart and rebuilt himself from the ground up, just for the chance to stand beside her. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." The preacher smiled. "You may kiss your bride." Jacob pulled her close. The kiss was gentle at first, then deeper, full of everything they'd survived and everything they'd become. The crowd erupted in cheers. When they pulled apart, Clara was laughing. "Well," she said, "we did it." "We did." Jacob pressed his forehead to hers. "No going back now." "I don't want to go back," Clara touched his face. "I only want forward." The celebration lasted until sunset. Food appeared from everywhere: pies, roasts, fresh bread, things Clara didn't even recognize. Someone brought a fiddle, someone else a guitar. The yard filled with music and laughter and the kind of joy Clara had forgotten existed. She danced with Jacob, danced with Silas, danced with Thomas and the other hands. She danced until her feet ached and her cheeks hurt from smiling. "You look happy," Martha said, pressing a glass of lemonade into her hand. "I am happy." Clara took a long drink.
Is that allowed?
"It's required." Martha's eyes were soft. "You've earned this, Miss Clara. Every bit of it." As the evening wore on, the crowd began to thin. Families headed home. The music slowed. Clara found herself standing under the old oak tree, staring at the spot where she'd buried Jacob's ring. Thinking about something? She turned. Jacob was there, his jacket off, his sleeves rolled up. "Just remembering." "The ring?" "The relief." Clara wrapped her arms around herself. "When they told me you were dead, I stood in this exact spot and felt like I could finally breathe. I hated myself for it." Jacob moved closer. "And now?" "Now I understand." She looked up at him. "I wasn't relieved that you were dead. I was relieved that the pain was over. The invisibility. The loneliness." "I'm sorry." "I know you are." Clara took his hand. "But I need you to know something. I've forgiven you. Completely.
Not because you earned it, though you have.
Because I can't carry the anger anymore. It's too heavy. Jacob's eyes glistened.
Clara, I choose you, she continued. Not because I have to. Not because of duty or obligation or anything else. I choose you because I love you. Because you showed me that people can change. Because when I look at you now, I don't see the man who hurt me. I see the man who came back. Jacob pulled her into his arms. He held her so tight she could barely breathe, but she didn't care. I will spend every day of my life being worthy of that, he whispered. Every single day. I know you will. They stood there as the stars came out, holding each other under the same tree where it all began. 1 year later, everything was different. The ranch had grown. New buildings replaced the ones Cole had burned. The herd was twice what it had been. And Clara had changed most of all. She woke each morning in Jacob's arms. She worked beside him in the fields, ate dinner with him each night, fell asleep listening to his heartbeat. The loneliness that had defined her for so long was gone, replaced by something she still didn't quite have words for. Partnership. Belonging. Home. On their first anniversary, Jacob asked her to meet him at the oak tree at sunset. Clara found him there, pacing nervously. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He stopped pacing. I have something for you. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Jacob, you already gave me a ring. This is different. He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band, smaller than her wedding ring, and inscribed on the inside were 4 words. I choose you always. Clara's breath caught. I had it made in Helena, Jacob said. I wanted you to have something that was just ours. Not the ring from our first marriage, not something from the past, something new. It's beautiful. So are you. Jacob slipped the ring onto her finger, beside her wedding band. 1 year ago, you gave me a second chance. You let me prove I'd changed. You chose to trust me when you had every reason not to. Jacob, let me finish. His voice was thick with emotion. I know I'll never completely make up for what I did. I know there are scars that can't be healed. But I swear to you, Clara, I will never stop trying. I will never stop loving you. I will never stop being grateful for every single day I get to wake up beside you. Clara was crying now. She didn't try to stop it. You ridiculous man, she said. You wonderful, ridiculous man. She kissed him. He kissed her back. And when they finally pulled apart, the sun was setting and the world was painted in gold. I have something for you too, Clara said. You do? I was going to wait for the right moment, but I suppose this is it. She took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. Jacob froze. What? Pregnant. Clara laughed at his expression. You know, with child. It means, I know what it means. Jacob grabbed her shoulders. You're serious? You're really? About 3 months. Martha figured it out before I did. Jacob stared at her. Then he let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and pulled her into his arms. A baby, he kept saying. We're having a baby. We are. I'm going to be a father. You are. Jacob pulled back, his face wet with tears. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve any of this. Maybe not. Clara cupped his face in her hands. But you've got it anyway. That's how second chances work. The months that followed were the happiest of Clara's life. She grew rounder. Jacob grew more protective, hovering over her like she might break at any moment. Martha and the hands took bets on whether it would be a boy or a girl. Boy, Thomas insisted. I can tell by how she's carrying. Girl, Martha countered. Mother's intuition. Mother? Clara raised an eyebrow. I've known you 7 years.
That makes me close enough. Clara laughed. She laughed a lot these days. The baby came in early spring. Clara labored for 12 hours. Jacob refused to leave her side, holding her hand through every contraction, wiping the sweat from her forehead, whispering encouragements when she wanted to give up.
I can't, she gasped. I can't do this.
You can. Jacob's voice was fierce. Clara Jane Dawson, you have survived everything this world threw at you. You can do this.
It hurts.
I know it does. He kissed her forehead. But you're not alone. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Clara screamed. She pushed. And then, finally, a different cry filled the room.
It's a girl,
Martha announced, tears streaming down her face.
A beautiful baby girl.
They placed the baby in Clara's arms. She was tiny, red-faced, perfect. Clara looked at her and felt her heart crack open in a way she hadn't known was possible.
Hello,
she whispered. Hello, little one. Jacob leaned over them both, his eyes wet.
She's perfect.
She is. What should we name her? Clara looked at the baby, her daughter, and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The pain, the loss, the long years alone, the second chance she'd almost thrown away. Hope, she said. Her name is Hope. Jacob smiled. Hope Dawson. I like it. Hope Jane Dawson. Clara touched the baby's tiny fingers. After my mother. Hope Jane Dawson. Jacob pressed a kiss to Clara's hair, then to the baby's forehead. Welcome home. 2 years passed. Hope grew from infant to toddler, all chubby cheeks and wild curls and her father's blue eyes. She followed Jacob everywhere, toddling after him through the ranch, demanding to be picked up, falling asleep in his arms at the end of every day.
She's got you wrapped around her finger,
Clara observed one evening. Completely. Jacob didn't deny it. Just like her mother. Clara leaned against him. They were on the porch watching the sunset, Hope asleep between them. Are you happy? She asked. More than I thought possible. Jacob took her hand. You?
Yes.
The word came easily now.
I am.
No regrets? Clara thought about it. Really thought. The years of loneliness. The cold marriage. The relief when she thought Jacob was dead. The fear when he came back. The slow, painful process of learning to trust again. No, she said finally. No regrets. Not even the hard parts? Especially not the hard parts. Clara looked at Hope, peaceful in sleep. The hard parts made us who we are. The hard parts got us here. Jacob was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I used to think strength meant never needing anyone, never depending on anyone, standing alone against the world. And now? Now I know that's not strength. That's just fear dressed up in armor. He squeezed her hand. Real strength is what you showed me. Letting someone in after they hurt you. Trusting again when every instinct says not to. Building something together instead of standing alone. You learned that. You taught me. Jacob turned to face her. Clara, I need to tell you something. What? I've been thinking about the future, about what I want for Hope, for us. He paused. I've been talking to a lawyer in Helena. Clara's heart stuttered. A lawyer? Why? Because I want to make sure that no matter what happens, you and Hope are protected. Jacob pulled a document from his pocket. This is a new deed. It puts the ranch in your name and Hope's name jointly. If anything happens to me, everything goes to you. No court battles,
No distant relatives claiming what's ours. Clara stared at the paper. Jacob, I know I already signed it over to you once, but that was during a crisis. This is different. This is me, in peacetime, with clear eyes, choosing to make sure my wife and daughter are protected forever. You don't have to. I want to. Jacob pressed the document into her hands. You built this place. You saved it. It should belong to you. Really, legally, permanently belong to you. Clara looked at the deed, at her name and Hope's name, written in clear legal terms. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept it. I accept it. Clara's voice broke. I accept it, and I accept you, and I will never stop being grateful that you came back. Jacob pulled her close, careful not to wake Hope. Neither will I. That night, after Hope was in bed, Clara walked to the oak tree. The moon was full, casting silver light across the ranch. She stood where she had stood so many times before, where she'd buried Jacob's ring, where they'd renewed their vows, where everything had begun and ended and begun again. She heard footsteps behind her. Couldn't sleep? Jacob asked. Just thinking. About what? Clara turned to face him. About the woman I was when you left. So small. So invisible. I didn't know who I was outside of being your wife. I didn't know who I could become. And now? Now I know. Clara took his hands. I am Clara Jane Dawson, owner of the most successful ranch in Montana Territory, mother to a beautiful daughter, wife to a man who chose to change everything about himself for the chance to earn my love. Clara, I'm not finished, she smiled through her tears. I am strong. I am capable. I am worthy of love and respect and every good thing that has come my way. And I know all of that because of you. Me? You. Clara touched his face. When you came back, when you knelt in the dirt and asked for forgiveness, you showed me something I had never seen before. You showed me that people can change, that the past doesn't have to define the future, that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. Jacob's eyes were wet. I didn't do anything. You did everything. Clara pulled him close. You tore yourself apart and built yourself back up. You worked harder than anyone I've ever seen. You faced down your brother, survived Garrett Cole, and never once asked for credit or praise. You just became, day by day, proof by proof, until I couldn't deny it anymore. Deny what? That I loved you. Clara laughed softly. God help me, Jacob Dawson. I love you. I love the man you've become. I love the father you are. I love every gray hair in your beard and every scar on your hands, and every single moment of these past 3 years. Jacob kissed her then, deep and tender and full of everything words couldn't hold. When they pulled apart, Clara was smiling. Take me home, she said. You are home. Clara looked around, at the oak tree, the ranch house, the land that stretched out in every direction, at the life she'd built, the love she'd found, the future that waited for her. Yes, she said, I am. They walked back to the house together. Behind them, the oak tree stood tall against the night sky, its roots deep in the earth, its branches reaching toward the stars, a witness to everything that had passed, a guardian of everything yet to come. 5 years later, the Dawson Ranch was the largest in Montana Territory. Clara ran it with the same competence she'd always shown. But now Jacob worked beside her as a true partner. They made decisions together, faced challenges together, built their legacy together. Hope was 6 now, already showing signs of her mother's determination and her father's stubbornness. She had a little brother, Samuel, named for the man Jacob might have been if he'd never learned to change. And Martha, silver-haired now, but still sharp as ever, ruled the household with an iron hand and a soft heart. On the anniversary of Jacob's return, the anniversary Clara still marked privately in her heart, she found him at the oak tree. "You always come here," she said. "It reminds me." "Of what?" "Of who I was." Jacob looked at her. "And who I became." Clara took his hand. "Any regrets?" "Only that I wasted so many years being someone I'm not." Jacob pulled her close. "But not anymore. Never again." "Never again," Clara agreed. They stood together as the sun set, two people who had found their way back to each other against all odds. Two people who had learned that love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up. Day after day, proof by proof. Clara thought about the woman she'd been when Jacob left. Invisible, small, relieved when she thought he was dead. She thought about the woman she'd become, strong, capable, loved beyond measure. And she thought about the future. Hope and Samuel growing up on this land, learning that change was possible, that second chances were real, that love could heal even the deepest wounds. "Clara?" Jacob's voice broke into her thoughts. "Yes?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For letting me come home." Clara turned and kissed him softly. "Welcome home," she said. "You've always belonged here." And standing under the oak tree where it all began, surrounded by everything they'd built and everyone they loved, Clara Jane Dawson finally understood what it meant to be truly, completely, irrevocably home. Not a place, not a building, but this, the two of them, together. That was home. That was everything. And it was enough. Thank you for staying with Clara and Jacob until the very end. If their story touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. New stories are waiting for you here. Stories of love, loss, second chances, and the courage to begin again. And before you go, choose another tale from the channel and let it keep you company a little longer. Until the next story.